Imagine finding out that your parents are not normal at all, but some of the greatest secret agents in the world. And when they suddenly disappear, it becomes your job to save them. That is exactly what happens in this crazy adventure. The story begins with two kids, Carmen and Juni, getting ready for bed. Before going to sleep, Juni carefully ties colorful ribbons around his fingers to hide the warts on them. He feels embarrassed about them and does not want anyone to notice. As the children settle down, their mother, Ingrid, starts telling them an interesting bedtime story. She talks about two secret agents who fell deeply in love. According to her story, many years ago, fear of war caused countries to train thousands of spies. These agents were masters of disguise and could fool almost anyone. The only people they truly feared were other spies. One day, a female agent received a mission. Her job was to find and eliminate another famous spy. At the same time, that spy had his own dangerous missions to complete. When the two finally met, something unexpected happened. Instead of becoming enemies, they were drawn to each other. The woman could not bring herself to complete her mission because she was completely charmed by him. As time passed, their feelings grew stronger. The two agents secretly left together and hid their relationship from their bosses. If anyone found out, both of them could be in serious trouble. Eventually, they decided to take on what Ingrid jokingly called the hardest mission of all, marriage. When their wedding day arrived, both of them happily said yes. It looked like their dangerous lives were finally behind them, but things were not that simple. Even after getting married, they still had enemies everywhere. Many people wanted revenge, and danger was never far away. A few years later, their lives changed forever when they became parents. With children to take care of, they decided to leave the spy world behind and live a peaceful and normal life. The two secret agents in the story were actually Ingrid and Gregorio, Carmen and Juni's parents. Of course, the children had no idea that the story was really about their own mom and dad. While Ingrid was telling the story, hidden technology quietly appeared all around the house. Secret panels slid out from the furniture, showing that this family was hiding much more than anyone could imagine. Ingrid also worried about her children, because they often got into trouble at school and liked playing little tricks. The next morning, Carmen and Juni continued their training at home. Carmen was much faster and more athletic than her younger brother. After watching Juni move slowly, she became frustrated and gave him a push. Juni fell hard onto the floor, but he was not going to let that slide. He quickly grabbed an object and threw it back at his sister. Like most brothers and sisters, the two were always finding new reasons to argue. While taking Juni to school, Gregorio noticed that his son spent far too much time watching television. He tried to talk to him about it, but something else suddenly caught his attention. Gregorio realized that one of the characters from The Floop Show, Juni's favorite TV program, looked very similar to an old enemy from his spy days. The discovery immediately made him suspicious. When they arrived at school, Gregorio noticed a student bullying Juni. Seeing his son being mistreated made him angry. Without thinking, he imagined walking straight up to the bully and teaching him a lesson. But before he could do that, the bully's large and muscular father stepped in front of him. In Gregorio's imagination, he easily grabbed the man and threw him aside with a powerful move. The problem was that none of it actually happened. It was only a fantasy inside Gregorio's head. In reality, he did not have the courage to confront the huge man. Juni noticed that his father did nothing to help him, and it made him feel disappointed. Wanting to forget about his problems, he escaped into the world of his favorite television show. Meanwhile, far away, the creator of the show, Mr. Floop, was working on a strange project. Inside his secret laboratory, he showed Agent Devlin and Agent Donegan his latest creations. These were captured agents who had been brainwashed and transformed into bizarre creatures called thumbs. The creatures looked ridiculous because their bodies were made almost entirely of giant thumbs. Floop then revealed another invention. This time, he presented a robotic copy of Donegan's own son. At first, the robot seemed harmless, but only seconds later, it suddenly jumped onto Donegan, grabbed his legs, and knocked him flat on the floor. Before he could recover, another robot appeared. It was a copy of the president's daughter, and it easily took him down as well. Floop proudly explained that he wanted to create many robotic versions of important people and secret agents. His goal was to build a powerful army that could replace real humans. Unfortunately, there was one major problem. The robots were strong, but they were not smart. They could not think like real people. Instead of speaking normally, they only made strange noises and sounds. Donegan was not impressed at all. After seeing the failed demonstrations, he became angry and demanded better results. He warned Floop that if he could not improve his inventions, their entire plan would fall apart. With Donegan still complaining, Floop's strange robotic helpers picked him up and carried him out of the room. Back in the real world, reports started coming in about secret agents disappearing without a trace. One after another, some of the world's best spies simply vanished. Gregorio knew something was wrong, so he decided to investigate. He prepared to go on a dangerous mission and find out what had happened to his fellow agents. Ingrid immediately wanted to join him. After all, she had once been one of the best spies in the world. But Gregorio was worried about their children. He believed one parent should stay home to look after Carmen and Juni. Ingrid refused to give up so easily. Using her charm and determination, she eventually convinced her husband to let her come along. To solve the problem, they asked Uncle Felix to watch the children while they were away. Soon, the couple opened their hidden spy equipment, put on their old spy suits, and prepared for action. For the first time in years, Gregorio and Ingrid were heading out on a mission together. It felt just like the old days. While traveling, they received a video call from Ms. Gradenko. The woman openly flirted with Gregorio, making it very clear that she liked him. Ingrid immediately became jealous and quickly interrupted the conversation before things could go any further. A few moments later, their car reached a sharp curve in the road. Instead of following the highway, the vehicle drove straight ahead and plunged into the ocean. But this was no ordinary car. As soon as it entered the water, it transformed into a high-tech submarine and continued traveling along the bottom of the sea. While they were underwater, the communication signal suddenly changed. The image of Ms. Gradenko disappeared, and Mr. Floop appeared on the screen instead. Floop calmly told the couple that he needed something that only they possessed. Before Gregorio and Ingrid could figure out how Floop had contacted them, they realized they were being chased by another submarine. The two spies immediately tried to escape. The chase continued through the deep ocean until a gigantic machine suddenly appeared and swallowed their submarine whole. At the same time, back at the Cortez family home, a red alert was activated. Alarms started going off everywhere. The warning caused Carmen, Juni, and Uncle Felix to rush toward a hidden safe area. While they were running, Felix finally revealed the truth. He explained that he was not really their uncle. He was actually a secret agent whose job was to protect the children whenever they were in danger. Even after hearing this, Carmen still found it hard to believe. Her parents seemed so caring and normal that she could not imagine them being famous international spies. Soon, a secret door opened and led the children into a hidden bunker. Felix stayed behind to deal with the enemies who were approaching the house. Inside the bunker, Carmen and Juni found a television screen. When they turned it on, they saw that Felix was already under attack by several strange men. Following his instructions, the children quickly escaped using a special emergency vehicle. The bunker transformed into a powerful flying pod and carried them away from the area. Outside, Floop's henchmen immediately began chasing them across the water. Neither Carmen nor Juni had much experience driving such a vehicle, and they nearly crashed into a man's boat. Luckily, they managed to avoid hitting him at the last second. Unfortunately, the enemies following them were not so careful. The pursuing boats smashed directly through the poor man's boat and split it in half. The chase continued at high speed. During all the chaos, Juni accidentally fell off the vehicle. Without wasting a second, Carmen grabbed him and helped him climb back on board. After recovering from the scare, the two siblings noticed they were heading toward a small island. While trying to figure out the controls, they accidentally activated the autopilot system. Suddenly, their vehicle transformed again and became a submarine. Meanwhile, the henchmen chasing them were not so lucky. Their boat slammed into rocks and exploded, ending the pursuit. As they traveled underwater, Carmen and Juni began pressing random buttons on the dashboard. Soon they were amazed by the beautiful sights beneath the ocean. They saw colorful sea life, strange underwater landscapes, and even several huge sharks swimming around their submarine. Back at Floop's headquarters, Gregorio and Ingrid made a shocking discovery. The strange characters from Floop's television show were actually former secret agents. They had been captured and transformed into bizarre monsters. Floop then revealed another part of his plan. He explained that Carmen and Juni were the only weakness of the famous spy couple. Because of that, he intended to use the children as bait and a distraction. Meanwhile, Carmen and Juni finally arrived at a hidden safe house. The place looked incredible. Food magically appeared inside the cupboards, and a special microwave could create meals from cartridges. It felt like something straight out of a science fiction movie. But despite all the amazing technology around him, Juni could not enjoy any of it. He was still upset after learning that his parents had lied to him for years. Even when Carmen prepared French fries for him, he refused to eat them. At that moment, He felt like he could no longer trust his own parents. Back at Floop's base, Ingrid and Gregorio were being held captive. Using a laser hidden inside her ring, Ingrid carefully burned through the ropes, tying her hands. The couple immediately began their escape. As they ran through the facility, a huge hole suddenly opened beneath them. Gregorio stayed behind for a moment and tried to jump across the gap, but he did not have enough speed. Just as he was about to fall, a glass platform suddenly appeared and saved him. The couple continued moving and eventually reached a strange place called the Virtual Room. The room could create realistic versions of locations from all around the world. Before they had time to explore it, the floor opened beneath them. They fell through a deep shaft and landed directly at Floop's dinner table. The scene was as strange as everything else in the building. Everyone was eating a thick, gooey-looking meal while casually talking. During the meal, Floop mentioned that his people were already trying to capture Carmen and Juni. The moment Gregorio heard this, he became furious. He immediately threatened Floop and warned him to stay away from his children. However, the guards quickly restrained him and forced him to remain seated. Floop then revealed an even bigger part of his plan. He explained that he wanted to use the intelligence and skills of captured spies to improve his inventions and create even better robotic copies. To prove that he was serious, Floop threatened to transform Gregorio into one of his ugly monster creations. Even with the threat hanging over him, Gregorio refused to cooperate. Since he would not help, Floop simply got rid of him. A trapdoor suddenly opened beneath Gregorio, and he disappeared through the floor. Meanwhile, back at the safe house, Carmen and Juni were exploring all the spy gadgets left behind by their parents. As usual, Juni's curiosity got him into trouble. While playing with a pair of handcuffs, he accidentally locked one around his wrist. As he struggled to free himself, he pulled too hard and ended up smacking himself in the head. While the children were deciding how to find their missing parents, someone knocked on the door. A moment later, Ms. Gradenko entered the safe house along with several armed men. She told the children that Floop was responsible for Ingrid and Gregorio's disappearance, but Juni refused to believe it. He had always admired Floop and loved his television show. To him, it was impossible that his hero could actually be turning spies into monsters. During the conversation, Carmen shared a message she had received from Felix. The message contained a strange warning. It said, "The third brain is alive." At the same time, Gradenko gave Carmen a bracelet as a gift. Everything seemed normal at first, but while everyone was talking, Juni accidentally bumped into a picture frame. The frame moved aside and revealed a hidden object. It was the mysterious third brain that everyone had been searching for. Looking outside, Juni noticed something strange. The men who had arrived with Gradenko were secretly sinking the children's submarine into the water. At that moment, the truth became clear. These people were not allies. They were working for the enemy. Unfortunately, the children realized this too late. Gradenko had already taken possession of the third brain. Now, Carmen and Juni had no choice but to fight back and get it back. One of the men tried to escape with the device. Carmen immediately jumped over a large fan and chased after him, but she could not catch him before he flew out of the safe house. Without thinking twice, Carmen grabbed a flying thruster and launched herself into the air. Her flying skills were far from perfect, and she struggled to stay balanced. To make matters worse, the Thumb-Thumbs were right behind her. Back at the shelter, Juni was still wearing the box that had become attached to his hand. When Gradenko got too close, he swung it at her like a weapon. The attack distracted her long enough for chaos to break out. During the struggle, one of the agents accidentally caused Gradenko's hair to catch fire. As the chase continued through the city, Carmen found herself trapped in a narrow alley. For a moment, it looked like there was no way out. Then she spotted a path over some nearby structures and quickly climbed to safety. Using her quick thinking, she managed to recover the third brain. Once she had it, she flew away at full speed. The Thumb-Thumbs tried to follow her, but crashed into a giant Floop advertisement board, giving Carmen enough time to escape. She immediately returned to rescue her brother. However, carrying both herself and Juni through the air proved difficult. After a while, she lost her grip, and Juni slipped away. The boy started falling toward the ground. Luckily, Carmen reacted just in time and caught him before he could crash. The two siblings quickly hid inside a clothing store. Not long afterwards, several Thumb-Thumbs entered the store looking for them. The creatures searched everywhere. At one point, they even noticed a set of flying thrusters hanging nearby. But before they could investigate further, a car ran over the equipment. The distraction convinced them that the children were not there, so they left. Meanwhile, Carmen and Juni quietly slipped out of the store without being seen. They escaped through another exit and boarded a streetcar. Far away at Floop's castle, The villain was furious. He could not believe that the children had escaped again. Seeing his frustration, Alexander suggested a new plan. Instead of using normal agents, they should send robotic children to capture Carmen and Juni. While traveling, Carmen decided to inspect her damaged tracking device. As she looked through it, she made an important discovery. Hidden inside was a note containing a single name, Machete. Along with the note was an old photograph showing her father standing beside a man she had never seen before. Before Carmen could think about what it meant, another argument started. Juni wanted to destroy the third brain, so nobody could use it. Carmen quickly stopped him. The disagreement turned into another fight between the brother and sister. During the argument, Carmen finally realized something shocking. The bracelet Gradenko had given her was not a gift at all. It was actually a tracking device. The enemy had been using it to follow them the entire time. Later, Carmen walked over to a fountain to get some water. As she stood there, Juni approached her, but something felt wrong. The way he talked sounded strange and unnatural. Then Carmen noticed something unbelievable. On the other side, another child who looked exactly like her was lifting Juni into the air. In that instant, Carmen understood the truth. The boy standing near her was not her real brother. He was one of Floop's robotic creations. Without wasting a second, Carmen tried to punch the fake Juni, but the robot's body was made of metal. Instead of hurting him, she ended up hurting her own hand. Meanwhile, the real Juni was still trying to protect the third brain. During the struggle, the device was thrown away and landed inside a toy machine at the playground. Before the children could grab it, the evil robot girl jumped into action. She spun the machine at incredible speed and quickly stole the third brain. With the device now in their possession, the robotic children prepared to leave. However, Juni managed to pull something from the fake boy before he escaped. It was a necklace. Written on it was a frightening message revealing that thousands of robotic children were being created. At this point, the movie reveals an important secret from the past. Years earlier, after the third brain had been created, Gregorio was ordered to destroy it, but he chose not to follow those orders. Instead, he hid the invention and kept its location secret from everyone, including his own family. He believed it was the safest way to protect the people he loved. After their encounter with the robot children, Carmen and Juni finally met the mysterious man named Machete. The children were shocked when he revealed the truth. Machete was actually Gregorio's brother. In other words, he was their real uncle. Back at Floop's castle, things were changing fast. Floop wanted to continue his plans, but another person had been working behind the scenes all along. Alexander revealed that he was the true creator of the mutant robot children. He had been using Floop's resources to build his own army. Soon after, one of his men arrived with the third brain. Now that Alexander had the device he needed, he no longer needed Floop. He immediately took control of the entire operation. Then he ordered his guards to arrest Floop and remove him from power. Just like that, Alexander became the new leader of the castle. Meanwhile, Carmen and Juni arrived at Machete's strange workshop. The place was filled with unusual inventions and spy gadgets. Machete explained that he created equipment for all kinds of people, both heroes and villains. The children begged him to help rescue their parents, but Machete refused to get involved. According to him, he was retired and had no interest in returning to dangerous missions. The only thing he agreed to do was lend them a small airplane. Later that evening, the family sat down for dinner. The food looked completely bizarre. Every dish seemed stranger than the last, but Carmen and Juni barely paid attention to the meal. All they could think about was saving their parents. Even after putting the children to bed, Machete remained stubborn and refused to help. However, Carmen and Juni were not ready to give up. In the middle of the night, they quietly got out of bed. Armed with laser swords, they carefully sneaked toward Machete's room. Their goal was to steal a map showing the location of Floop's castle. The children moved as quietly as possible. At one point, Machete almost woke up. Fortunately, he remained asleep, and the siblings managed to get what they needed. Before leaving, they also borrowed several useful gadgets from his workshop. A short time later, Machete suddenly woke up. By then, it was already too late. He could hear the sound of the airplane taking off in the distance. The children were already on their way. As Carmen and Juni flew toward the castle, another problem appeared. The airplane's autopilot system began to malfunction. The siblings were forced to take control themselves. Unfortunately, they quickly started arguing about how to fly the aircraft. Their fight caused the plane to lose control and head straight toward the rocky cliffs surrounding the castle. The situation became extremely dangerous. At the very last moment, the children grabbed their diving gear and jumped out. Seconds later, the airplane smashed into the rocks and exploded. Luckily, Carmen and Juni survived. Inside the castle, Alexander had already started using the third brain. The powerful invention was now helping create even more robotic children. When the siblings finally entered the castle, they immediately ran into one of the thumb creatures. Juni froze in fear, but Carmen reacted quickly. She chewed a special piece of electric shock gum and spat it directly at the creature. The attack stunned the monster and allowed them to continue moving. As they explored the castle corridors, Juni secretly placed tiny spy cameras throughout the hallways. Using the cameras, they could keep an eye on everything happening around them. Soon, they noticed several guards and captured prisoners moving through the corridors. Realizing they were about to be discovered, the children came up with a clever plan. They climbed into the ceiling and hid above the enemies. While the thumbs were distracted, Juni quietly spoke to one of the prisoners and asked if he had seen their parents. After getting the information he needed, Juni climbed back down. Unfortunately, one of the thumbs spotted him. The creature moved in to attack. Luckily, Carmen reacted quickly once again. She used special shock bubbles that exploded with electricity and knocked the monsters unconscious. The siblings immediately ran toward the dungeon area. Along the way, they encountered a large group of robotic children. At first, Carmen and Juni tried to blend in with them and sneak through unnoticed. But there was a problem. The robots had become much smarter than before. They quickly realized that Carmen and Juni were imposters. The children had no choice but to run. As they raced through another corridor, a trap suddenly activated. A huge hole opened beneath their feet. Carmen tried to jump to safety, but she was too late. She fell straight into the darkness below. Juni could only watch helplessly before continuing forward alone. Soon, he arrived at the virtual room. There, he unexpectedly met Floop. While speaking with Juni, the story revealed more about Alexander's past. Years ago, Alexander had worked alongside Gregorio at the spy organization. He was a brilliant inventor, but he became obsessed with using the third brain for his own experiments. Because of his dangerous ideas, he was eventually expelled from the organization. Meanwhile, Carmen finally reached the bottom of the deep shaft she had fallen into. When she climbed out, she discovered something shocking. She had landed inside the Thumb factory. This was where many of the strange creatures were being created. Not long afterward, Ms. Gradenko arrived at the castle. Although she was trying to act confident, she was now missing nearly half of her hair because of the earlier fight. Even so, Alexander welcomed her warmly. Back in the virtual room, Floop tried to explain the truth to Juni. He insisted that he was not the real villain. According to him, Alexander was the one responsible for everything. Juni was still angry. Without warning, he threw a shock bomb directly at Floop's forehead. The explosion caused Floop to instantly return to his normal size after being altered earlier. As Juni left the room, he suddenly ran into a thumb. Startled, he jumped onto the creature, and both of them crashed to the floor. To his surprise, the thumb was not a monster at all. It was Carmen wearing a disguise. The brother and sister were finally reunited. Together, they continued toward the dungeon. When they arrived, they found Ingrid locked inside a cell. But the biggest shock was seeing Gregorio. Alexander had transformed him into one of the ugly monster creatures. Thankfully, Floop knew how to reverse the process and turn him back to normal. Meanwhile, Alexander was busy holding a meeting with his followers. Suddenly, a voice came through the castle loudspeakers and interrupted him. Shortly afterward, Alexander found Juni. But before he could do anything, the entire Cortez family appeared and turned the tables on him. They tied him to a table and forced him to activate one of his own machines. Within moments, Alexander was transformed into a monster himself. Now the family had a new problem. Thousands of robotic children were preparing to leave the castle. If they escaped, they could create chaos all over the world. The heroes rushed toward the control room to stop them. However, things became difficult once again. On the way there, Ingrid and Gregorio were attacked by robotic copies of their own children. At the same time, Carmen, Juni, and Floop finally reached the control room. After a quick discussion, they came up with a brilliant idea. Instead of destroying the robots, they would reprogram them and turn them into good children. Elsewhere in the castle, Donegan was demanding to see his powerful robot army. At that very moment, Alexander suddenly appeared disguised as one of the monsters. Meanwhile, Carmen and Juni briefly found their parents again. But before they could celebrate, an elevator carried Gregorio and Ingrid away. The family was separated once more. Soon afterward, the robotic copies of Carmen and Juni returned. This time they were even stronger, smarter, and more dangerous. Even so, The real Carmen and Juni refused to back down. During the fight, Carmen activated a gadget that trapped the robot version of Juni against the ceiling. At the same time, the evil robot Carmen grabbed the real Juni and spun him around effortlessly using only one hand. Elsewhere, Gregorio and Ingrid managed to escape from their captors. However, they accidentally fell into the castle's main hall. There, they discovered all of the villains gathered together. Donegan was especially excited. He could not wait to see the army of robotic children in action. Back in the control room, the battle between the real children and their robotic doubles became even more intense. The evil Carmen suddenly threw Juni across the room. The fight became even more dangerous. The robotic girl then captured Carmen and held her tightly. To show just how powerful she was, she punched a nearby wall. The wall cracked apart as if it were made of soft plastic. She was clearly trying to scare her opponents. A few moments later, the robot grabbed Juni by the collar and lifted him up. But Juni was smarter than she expected. Without panicking, he quickly spat a piece of electric shock gum directly into the robot's face. The powerful shock distracted the robotic children for a moment. Carmen immediately took advantage of the opportunity and escaped from the grip of the fake robot brother. The real siblings then pulled out another gadget. They fired a sticky glue-like substance at their robotic doubles. Within seconds, the fake Carmen and fake Juni were trapped and unable to move. Knowing the glue would not hold them forever, the children quickly ran away. Soon they reached the main hall of the castle. There they found Gregorio and Ingrid fighting several enemy agents. The experienced spies easily knocked out one opponent after another. For a brief moment, it looked like the family had finally won. But then a new problem appeared. An army of nearly 500 robotic children suddenly entered the hall. The heroes were completely surrounded. The situation looked hopeless. Just when it seemed there was no way out, Uncle Machete arrived. Even though he had refused to help earlier, he could no longer stay out of the fight. Now the entire family was together again. Still, nobody knew how they could possibly defeat such a huge army. At that exact moment, Floop finally completed his work in the control room. Using the system, he successfully reprogrammed all the robotic children. Instead of following Alexander's evil orders, the robots suddenly became friendly. The cheerful robot children immediately turned against the villains who had created them. The battle ended almost instantly. With the danger finally over, the family was able to enjoy an emotional reunion. Gregorio and Machete embraced each other after years of distance and disagreements. For the first time in a long while, the brothers were truly happy to see one another. Even Machete could not hold back his emotions. Meanwhile, Floop reflected on everything that had happened. He told Juni that the boy's kindness and belief in him had helped him make the right choice. Because of that, he had found the courage to stop Alexander and save everyone. Not long afterward, Carmen and Juni shared some exciting news with their parents. After everything they had accomplished, they had officially become secret agents themselves. The children who had once needed rescuing were now heroes in their own right. As time passed, the robotic children began appearing on news programs around the world. Instead of causing trouble, they were helping people and performing good deeds in different communities. Floop also returned to making his television show. This time, however, things were very different. Alexander, the former villain, had been transformed into one of the strange Fooglies and became part of the show. The robot versions of Carmen and Juni also appeared as characters on the program. Life finally seemed peaceful again. But for the Cortez family, peace never lasted very long. One day, they received an important call from the president of the OSS. He had a brand new mission. This time, the mission was meant only for Carmen and Juni. However, the two young agents had one condition. They agreed to accept the assignment only if the entire family was allowed to participate. That meant Gregorio, Ingrid, Carmen, Juni, and even Uncle Machete. After all, they were not just a family anymore. They were a family of spies. And together, they were ready for whatever adventure came next.